Welcome, everybody, to Illuminate, Navigate, Radiate, the journey of emotional resilience. I'm your host, Brandon. I have Michael joining us as always for these topic discussions. Michael, how you doing today?
Fantastic. Thanks for having me on.
Of course, man. It's always good seeing you and always grateful to have you on. And so we can go back and forth about, different topics surrounding our mental health and what we can do as a community and as a group to improve those. So as always, thanks again for joining us.
Absolutely.
So we're gonna jump into habits today, and in connection with mental health, habits can have a really big impact on that, and what you're doing with your life, how you're feeling about your life, and where you're going. So a quote I saw that I thought really hit the nail on the head with this topic is, habits are the architects of our lives. Choose wisely, for they build our mental sanctuary or our mental prison. And that really just hit me because, looking at it and thinking about the different habits that I've developed or formed in my life, when they were good, I definitely had that sanctuary. When they were bad, I definitely was in a prison mentally and feeling like I couldn't escape those bad habits, feeling like I couldn't break them, couldn't, get away from them. Um, and then, on the flip side of that, when I have good habits and I'm doing good, positive things in my life, I just feel better, a little less stressed, a little happier, feeling a little bit better just about the way things are going and how I feel every morning I wake up. So I think habits and routine can play a huge role on our mental health and how we're feeling and then kind of where we're going with that and where we're going to end up in our lives. And it's all about changing those to be better, right? They can be big, they can be small, but changing those habits, those routines to create the life we want to create and we want to live. And so kind of just bringing you into the introduction of this topic, how do you feel that habits and routines impact your mental health or just your life overall?
Yeah, I actually really like that quote. It's definitely maybe not in those exact words, but our habits come from our thoughts, and we're either happy or sad. And I know that for me, um, just if you start off with a small bad habit, like you might not think it's that big of a deal, but that's when it'll kind of sneak up and get you. So for me, I like the idea of really focusing on trying to have good habits, but beyond that, how it ties to kind of my mental ability as well to stay happy, stay positive. A lot of stuff that, we do on a daily basis, we may not realize is even a good or bad habit. We just are so used to doing it. And sometimes that can be what gets us into a situation where we maybe aren't as happy with what we're doing and the decisions we're making. And we don't realize that it's just a simple habit that we've got ourselves into that has now kind of caused ourselves to be stuck in that sort of mental prison where we're not really able to break away and the habits keep repeating. We don't see a way out. And then that's really where the challenge goes because the good habits bring the opposite, but it's a lot harder to get to there. And that's where I personally like talking about habits in general because I'm big on talking about building good habits with my little ones and even, people I've been around. So yeah, I like when it comes to deciding how you're going to approach your day, having good or bad habits can determine that day before it even starts.
Yeah, and I'm definitely a creature of habit. I would assume probably most people are. We all have our habits and our routines of how we go about our day, how we live our life, how we handle certain situations. And I really like what you said, just instilling in your little ones, good habits. And I think that's like one of the biggest things we can do as parents, even is just try to create those good habits in order to give them those tools to handle different situations in life. And one way I think that habits and routine can connect to our mental health is just it shapes our thought patterns and then it helps our emotional responses, right? So if we understand that, when something happens, whether it's good or bad, we can have that appropriate emotional response. Right now I'm going through it with my son, my 4-year-old, about his emotional responses, and at 4 we just kind of blow up. It's the end of the world for everything, and so we do something, smell the roses and blow out the candles, and so he's getting that breathing, and so trying to just get that habit, that routine of, okay, when I get upset, this is something I can do. So we do that 3 or 4 times, then we count to 10, and then we talk about whatever it is that the problem was. And so I think, just thinking about those type of things as an adult, when I let myself respond over the top to small things all the time, I'm miserable. right? Because it just feels like everything's against you. It feels like nothing's going to go right for you. And so no matter what it is, you have this negative response. And I know for me, when I was in those really bad moments, they were over the top. Like if something small would happen and it would just be the end of the world, end of the day, and I'd have to go get high. Although I was probably looking for any excuse to to do that at the time, you know. Um, so I think it's important to keep that in mind that we want to be able to develop, you know, those thought patterns to where it's like, okay, this happens, I can handle it the right way. Or even something like, okay, I'm showing up, you know, you start a new job, you start showing up late, you know, every day in the beginning. It's kind of easy to start to keep doing that to where you don't think it's a big deal. So then that thought pattern is, well, I can get away with being late here, or I can get away with being late here, and then eventually it's probably going to bite you in the ass, right? So it developing those habits and sticking to them, you know, really does a lot for a productive lifestyle, but then again, a happier lifestyle because you can handle things in the appropriate way to where you also get good responses and good receptions from those around you.
Yeah, I like kind of what you're saying there specifically too with the people around you because it's whether it's a good habit or a bad habit, you're gonna definitely, the people around you will know. And I like the example you gave with work. If you feel like you can show up late that first day or maybe that first week or even later in your career and you just, okay, I got away with it the first time. Cool. Nobody really said anything. Cool. So maybe the next day you're a few minutes late. Nobody says anything. After 2 to 3 weeks of that, now you have built a habit and those habits are hard to break once you build them. So I know that that's where it might seem like not a big deal, but the habits start from your whole thought process. And I think that's a big, important connection between the two of your mental mindset, your ability to react to things, and then also how you choose to react in terms of what you do. And when you do something over and over again, it becomes a habit. Ideally, you want to be on time and have habits that are good so that you can, build the relationships you're supposed to at work and do what you're supposed to do. But what happens is it's a lot easier to fall victim to, I was just a couple minutes, I'm not going to do it again. Boss didn't say anything to me. I didn't hurt anybody. I had to take care of this or that before. And really what I found with when I start making excuses for either myself or others, it's because of a repeated action of bad habits. And that's where I know that people that can relate to this know it's not fun to kind of be in that mindset because what you end up doing is it's a whole decision to be late. And I know that might not make sense, but you're deciding to wake up a few minutes after you should, or starting your morning routine a little bit after you should, leaving just a little bit after you should. Like you could easily wake up a few minutes earlier, be on time every day, but you just decided that that's not worth it. And then that's where I kind of see, oh, you don't value maybe what you're doing. And if that's a part of it, I know that can be important. If you don't see value in what you do, then yeah, it's easy to fall into a bad habit because you don't really care as much. You don't really want to put in effort. And as long as you're not going to get fired in the example of a job or you're not going to see any immediate repercussions, it's a lot easier to fall victim to that. And I think that's the fallacy for a lot of people. We just find the easy way out. And as long as nobody really affected or got hurt, we're kind of cool with it. I know that's sad to say, but I feel like it's true for me in my life.
Yeah, I mean that you said that really well with just like making those excuses and falling into that fallacy of bad habits and excuses and like, oh, I can get away with this stuff and so it's not really affecting me. But I don't think we always see that effect early on, especially with what you said, if like you get away with it, or maybe it's really not like the biggest of deal in the moment, but eventually I like that example of, get it, like you said, just get up a few minutes earlier, because you could be leaving, at 7:30 and getting there 10 minutes early. And then eventually, after a couple of weeks, you realize, oh, I could leave 5 minutes later. 5 minutes later, and you start pushing that and you start like going into that bad habit of, oh, I got this extra time, but then you're rushing in that last minute. Or you're hitting traffic and you're ending up being even later than what you thought you were going to be. So I think, when we see those bad habits, it's really important to notice them early on and the things that like trigger them, like I think another small one that I look at is just my sleep patterns, right? I know they're not the I don't have the best habits when it comes to sleep. And I think that comes from, just some of like my mindset of when I was using and things I still deal with when I'm going to bed. Um, but yeah, I always got to have the TV on, and I always got to be watching something. And then I get into this habit of like, oh, I'm going to turn on something that I've already seen so I can close my eyes and not have to watch it. But then I'm like, oh, I like this part, so now I'm watching it. And then I'm watching TV, and I know like it's proven that light's not even good for your sleep. You don't get good sleep when those, LED lights are going on and those noises are going on. Um, and so I try to, notice that and then figure out why I feel I have to do that, right? Like those things that trigger me, or those things that um make me uncomfortable with the TV off. And so I try to notice those things so then I can start to change those bad habits. And I think that's an important part of getting away from bad habits, is just noticing, okay, why do I do this? What pushes me to this point of I'm gonna get up later, or I'm gonna eat this bad food when I get home from work, or I'm gonna go to bed really late, or I'm gonna just over the top react, to somebody asking me a question. And those little things, when we can notice those, we can start to say, okay, well, I got to go to bed a little bit earlier so I can lay there a little bit longer and still fall asleep at a good time. Or I have to put the remote on the other side of the room, or I have to plug my phone in on the other side of the room so I'm not always constantly grabbing it and trying to turn on something else, or looking at my screen and scrolling for no reason, or hitting update on something for no reason because it was 30 seconds ago. So I think it's, when we notice those things, then we can start to change or challenge at least those small bad habits that we have, which again, your small habits really do have an impact on your bigger ones.
Yeah, no, that's 100% true. And I kind of really like how you talk about when it comes to kind of your specific things with, like, we know we're supposed to go to bed early enough when we have to wake up early, yet here we all are scrolling either through a phone. I do exactly what you do, which is why it resonates with me. I will put on a TV show or series that I've watched a million times, knowing that I can fall asleep and I won't miss something. But see, what happens is if I'm watching something new, then I won't turn it off and I won't fall asleep and I'll just keep watching it. And I've noticed that there's a phase where I'm sleepy, and if I lay down and go to sleep, but if I push through that, I'll be up for another couple hours, and that's where the next day gets affected. And then if you already have been doing that for months and years, you have a very, I'll just say, ingrained bad habit, and the harder or the longer that habit has been, the harder it is to overcome that bad habit. So I like really what you said too when you were talking about finding, I guess I would call it the why, like recognizing why do we do these things that always very noticeably and obviously put us in a situation where we're forcing ourselves to not just start off the day worse, but we're putting ourselves in a situation to keep doing bad habits. So like I went to bed late, now I woke up late. There's another bad habit on top of another one. Maybe I didn't, eat breakfast, then I didn't do my normal routine, and now I'm not at my peak for performance at work. And then it just kind of compounds throughout the day. And that's just one day. If you've been doing that for 5 years, 6 years, it's a mess, really. And I know that I found myself not really taking ownership of that before I realized kind of what was important and why I was doing the things I was doing that created these negative emotions because of bad habits. I was just like, I'm just I'm young, I'm doing what I'm doing. Leave me alone. I'm not, I didn't hurt you. Yeah, but you were 5 minutes late. We had a commitment. You didn't do this. Whatever, man. It's not my fault. And then now it's more like, it's 100% on me. Of course, I have to remember that I am in control of my actions. And if I'm directly impacting someone else's life or what we have going on, I have to remember that it's not just about me. And whether my bad habits are good or bad, I need to focus on making sure that whoever I'm around doesn't get affected in a negative way if it is a. So really trying to recognize why we do it. And granted, I recognize it a lot, and I'm not saying it's like, oh, I recognize it and then I can just do it. I should go to sleep at 10:30, so I do. No, honestly, I probably to this day have a very bad habit of doing things that I shouldn't do, but I know that it's gotten better over the last several years, and I think that's really the goal here is to progress forward. It's not an overnight switch. You're not going to write down a list of 25 things you have bad habits are and the next day do them all right. That's not what we're saying. But writing those things down, maybe being able to recognize I go to bed too late, I wake up late, I'm late to work, I don't do the chores I'm supposed to do or my responsibilities until it's too late. And I know that's kind of a recurring theme, too late, but that's, I think, the true king of bad habits is being late. And if you can just change being late to being on time or being early, it's crazy how much pressure and stress is relieved from your whole life because now you're a few minutes early. Now you have time to think. You don't have to worry about rushing. Traffic, coincidentally, now it went your way because you left early. And it's funny how those things work when you're not doing the things you're supposed to be doing and it feels like the world's against you. When you start doing the things you are supposed to be doing, it's funny how the world starts to seem like it's with you. And that's the big part of habits connected to my mental health that I've experienced because now that I know that I need to do certain things at a certain time, I just don't let it go too far. Like if I'm tired and I know I need to go to sleep by like 10:30, I'm usually asleep around 11, maybe 11:30. It's not that 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 7 episode binge watch and then wake up in 5 hours and try to go to work. So finding a balance, and I know we've talked about balance in a previous segment, but I feel like it really relates here when it comes to your habits because if you do have bad habits, can you moderate them a little bit until you can find a way to create some good ones? It's a challenge, but I know that that's a good way to approach it if you're kind of stuck in that cycle, which for several years I know I was.
Yeah, no, I love that. And like just being able to notice those bad habits and see that build. Like I really like how you build that with oh you're going to bed late, then you're waking up late, then you're missing breakfast, so maybe you're stopping in and you're getting a coffee and you're spending money and or buying, McDonald's breakfast, which really isn't good for you. But you start to build these bad habits and then they get ingrained in you and you do them for so long. And just looking at I like that you like, oh, my fault. That's, or, that's not my fault, and I don't know how many times I said that in my life when I'm looking at some of the bad habits I created, especially when I was young, whether it was turning to drugs or alcohol every time I had an issue, good or bad, whether it was running away when things got too big, or I felt like things got too big and I convinced myself they were too big for me to face or handle. So then I would bail out. And I really had to change those and work on them, right? I really had to think about them and figure out different ways to approach those. Sometimes it was a little bit more extreme, and obviously with drugs, I did have to cut those off right away, but it wasn't an easy thing right away. Things that helped me start defeating those bad habits were like, a support system, some self-compassion in the sense of like, okay, if I do mess up, that's all right. I can keep work on it. I can keep taking those small steps. And one I've noticed about my sleep patterns is kind of going back to what you said about watching something new. I know if I turn on something new, I'm not going to bed. Like it just doesn't work that way. I want to watch it. I want to watch it as much as I can of it. So even lately, I'm looking for something to turn on as I'm going to bed, and it's like, oh, I want to watch that, but if I turn it on now, I'm going to be exhausted tomorrow. My day is going to be long, and it's just going to throw off tomorrow if I decide to stay up and watch it now. So I will turn on something that I have watched in order to like ease that pull to stay up. Because it's like, all right, eventually it'll get to a part where I'm just like, good, I've seen this, I know exactly, like I can close my eyes and picture exactly what's happening, and I'll be all right. So sometimes it's just about setting those little things, right? Because like you said, it's not going to happen overnight. We're not going to beat those bad habits overnight, especially if we've been doing them for so long. But we can still take those small steps to do it. And like I said, you have to find different ways that are going to help you doing that. A support system for me when it came to certain habits like, drugs, alcohol, that type of stuff, that support system was huge. It was people that hold me accountable. It was people that check in on me. It was people that I could go to if I'm like, hey, I'm struggling. I feel like I'm about to go use, or I'm having this thought like, oh, it'd be easy to use right now. Can you help me out? Can you listen to me a little bit? Can can we go hang out and get my mind off it? And so I think a support system can be huge. I think another one is just finding something to replace that bad habit too. You know, if you have this angry response to something all the time, then maybe you're telling yourself, all right, if this happens today, I'm going to think about it this way. And my perspective is going to be, oh, positive, like, okay, this happened, but what's the good in it? Immediately start training your brain to when something negative happens, find the good right away. It might not change everything completely, but I think there's something to what you said with when we have those bad habits, it seems like everything's against us. When we have good habits, it seems like life flows with us. I think that's because we're not just fighting against, you know, those the ways of life. Like we're accepting what's happening, and then we're trying to build and move on. And I think when we can create a habit to accept what's going on and then say, okay, this is what happened, this is how I handle it, or this is a different way I'm going to approach it so it doesn't throw off the rest of my day, week, whatever, then we can start to like defeat those bad habits and start replacing them with some good ones. Right? We can start adding some good ones in. And I think when I look at some of the new habits that I've set, you know, over the last couple of years or even the last couple of months, you know, coming back from a really depressive episode in a really dark place, I realized I had to change some of my habits. And so just setting a goal of, all right, I'm going to talk to one person today. You know, I'm going to talk to one person each day and just like have that little connection. So that way I don't feel so isolated. I don't feel so lonely, and it keeps me from getting back into that dark place. So I know for me, setting like a realistic goal of, okay, this is what I'm going to get done, or I'm going to wake up and make my bed because it's going to make me feel just like I already got something done. I can pat myself on the back, you know, real quick. Got something done right away in the morning, and now I can go about my day. So just setting those little goals, I think, can help us develop those little habits, which again, in turn, go into those bigger steps in life of, all right, now I'm doing the right thing all the time, or trying to do those right little things all the time, or I'm taking that 5 minutes of mindfulness to support my mental health, or I'm reaching out to that person to feel that connection each day, or I'm, you know, I got a flat tire, but I can realize, all right, well, it's not the end of the world. I got a spare in the trunk, or I got AAA I can call up, or I got all these different options to where, you know, 15, 20 years ago, you didn't have quick access to roadside service or anything like that. So I think there's different ways we can start to create good habits in our life and help them fulfill what we want out of life and hit those goals of happiness that we want.
Wow. Yeah, I that resonates with me completely, and I like what you said with when you were talking about, you know, starting off your day with, say, making your bed. I like that a lot because it's so easy to get caught into a cycle of behavior from a pattern. If you start your day off with a bad habit, there's a very good chance that the bad habits that you have will follow suit, which is why the universe always will feel like it's against you. But just by starting off with one good habit, you make your bed. It's so wild, but it's so much easier to fall into a pattern of good habits when you start off your first day with a very good habit off start. Make your bed, then you go to brush your teeth. Now it becomes more routine. You're not thinking about doing it. It's just coming naturally and it feels more natural. And all of a sudden now you're 5 minutes early and you're at work early, and even your boss is looking at you like, I haven't seen you early in 6 years. Everything all right? You know what I mean? But it's like, yeah, man, I feel great. I got up early. Keep it up, you know? Awesome. So just starting your day, I think, with something good, whether it's making your bed, brushing your teeth, just not being, I'll just say being the opposite of lazy in the morning is a good way to get your day started off right. For me, it's always been brush my teeth. I know that that's probably a cliche. A lot of people probably think it's the same thing and they just whatever. But I know if I brush my teeth first thing in the morning when I wake up, use the bathroom, mouthwash, I'm kind of ready to start the day in a good way. But if I am sleepy, or if I did decide to stay up all night and binge watch a series, went to bed at 2 a.m., have to wake up at 5 or 6, get girl up for school, and from there try to go, there's mornings I've skipped brushing my teeth. Sorry, everybody. But you know what I mean? It's just one of those where, and then after that, maybe I don't make the phone calls I'm supposed to make at work, or maybe I'm a little bit lazier when it comes to a conversation with a customer, and I maybe don't give 100% effort for customer service, and I just don't give everything that I'm capable and that I've shown I can give in the past. And all it started was one bad decision or one bad habit, and it actually starts the night before in that situation. But you could just be in the morning, you wake up, you don't do something instead of do it, and then your whole day follows that. So I think for anybody listening, that's a huge way to take a small step that can maybe have the biggest impact without you really having to change your lifestyle. If you feel like making changes is tough or you're resistant to that type of switch in your life, everybody, knock on wood, everybody's brushing their teeth hopefully at least once or twice a day. Start with that. Just wake up, first thing you go to the bathroom, brush your teeth, look yourself in the mirror. Today's going to be a good day. I'm going to knock out what I got to knock out. And then kind of goes back to other topics we've had, but really that positive self-talk will breed a positive outlook. And then when you have that positive outlook, you can start to make good choices, which then can turn into good habits. And then if you repeat those, it cycles to a good situation where now when you wake up, everything's easier. You don't have to feel so stressed about life when you're just doing your normal everyday routine activities. And there's a quote from a rapper that I know, but basically the routine repeating is the way that I win. And I love that because when you have a good routine and you can just put it on repeat, you're ahead of everybody because you're not thinking about doing the good things. They just come naturally. And when the things that are hard come easy, it's a lot easier to then focus your attention on doing better at whatever your craft is, whether it's at work, whether it's at school, it's at home. And so for me, that's where I've really learned how to be, I think, my best self, even when I'm dealing with some negative thoughts or some stuff that isn't going my way. That approach and outlook, knowing that I can take a different look and I have control over my actions, so I can choose to respond in a positive way to even the most negative thing. I know you gave the example of a flat tire, and I like that one because a lot of times that's the straw that breaks the camel's back for some people. Everything was going wrong, and now my car broke down. I got a flat tire. I can't do nothing. Lord, just kind of take me away type of feeling. And I get it because a lot of us have been there, and you may be there currently. But just knowing that life isn't over. It's not what you wanted to happen, and while it definitely sucks and it's an inconvenience, it's not going to be something that will get you down unless you let it, and then you decide to take your next action that's going to enforce that being a negative, as opposed to really saying, you know what, this sucks, but I got my buddy, like you said, AAA's nationwide, whatever you got somebody you can call. I'll push my damn car to work if I have to get to work. It's not going to affect me to where I can't work or I can't live my life. So I really like kind of what you were saying there specifically when it came to something could happen, but it's not the end of the world. And if you feel like it's the end of the world, then that's where you do need what you were talking about, a support system or someone you can reach out to just like, this might not be a big deal for you, but my car broke down and I just want to crawl into bed and, crawl up into a ball and cry. Help. And sometimes that's what you need to do. You need to be able to talk to somebody and release that, because then it's going to be the friend that, hey, you're overreacting. It's okay. My car broke down too. Do this. Cool. Okay. And then it kind of recycles your whole approach and your mentality. And then that can help push you back in towards the positive. But if you focus it on yourself and you're just kind of like a negative feeling, start to maybe think about the loneliness and isolation, like, okay, you know what, the world's out to get me, like it always has been for the past 10 years of my life, and now I'm just going to wither away. That's the time when you need to kind of reflect, like, let me shed some light on this. This is hopefully not how you want to live every day. And if you want to be more productive and better for yourself and others, take that first step. Just, hey, I don't know where to go. Help me out. And I think that's super important to be able to do, because not everybody is going to see it the same way, but just being able to, I think, take that first step, at least that's, for me, been very beneficial in my progress as I transition from bad habits to good habits.
Yeah, I mean, there was so much good that you said, and that I agree with and can relate to. And I really like that, what you were saying with the routine and how that just like you can be winning when you're on that routine, right? When you're on that good routine, then that success comes. And that's because you don't think about doing the things that you're supposed to be doing. It's that habit, right? When you are doing those things that are productive in life, and then you do them enough, you do them long enough, you get that consistency in there, then it just happens without even thought. Then you can add something else to it. And I think that that's really important. And, when I was changing like so much of my life at one time, getting off drugs and, just trying to create good habits, is that consistency with it was key, because then that's what gave me the ability to not even think about it anymore. It was just, that was part of my life now. Doing the right thing, or having a better outlook, or being able to control my emotional responses came from just constantly doing it, even when it was hard, or even if I was, if I missed a beat, right? If my goal is to wake up and make my bed, and I woke up late because my alarm didn't go off, power went out or something, phone died, then I would either do it right away, or that's the first thing that I would do when I got back from work. Then you go back to it. And I think when we can get in those habits, it takes some time. Like you said, changing those things isn't easy, and it's really hard. I think they say like it takes like 90 days to break a bad habit. And I know it's something like that, because 90 days is what they tell you to do when you get clean. 90 meetings in 90 days, because it helps you develop that habit of, okay, this is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to do it. And so that's like pushed hard in early recovery is to do that type of stuff. And so when you can do that, you get that consistency, then you start holding yourself accountable when you do it enough, right? And then you can look at it and say like, all right, I messed up today, or I missed this one, have a little bit of, self-compassion there, give yourself a break, embrace the fact that you failed in that moment, and then give yourself some understanding, and be able to go back and look at it and say, okay, I woke up late tonight because I didn't go to bed early last night. I messed up that routine. So now I just got to do a little bit better there. Or I had this emotional response because, I let something else get to me. So now I gotta be able to not take it out on that person that's just like saying, hey, how was your day? And flipping out and being like, oh, it was terrible. And like, no, that's, they don't deserve that response, and I shouldn't give them that response. And so I think it's, when we can put all those things together, we can start building those good habits. And when we build those good small habits, it's going to lead into being successful and happy in life. And, when I say successful, that might not be what you're picturing in your head, because my success is different than your success. So I think defining those two words overall in life are super important. What is your happiness? What is what is success to you? So that way you can always work towards those. But when you when you start making those small habits, right? You start making those small changes, you can start making bigger ones. You can start bringing in different aspects of life. You can start adding more positive to it, and you can just be in that routine to where you're in this positive routine, one that you enjoy, one that brings you calm, one that brings you peace, one that brings you happiness. So then you can get to those levels of success and happiness that we all want to get to in life. And so I think, as you go through that journey of creating good habits or breaking bad ones, some of the best advice I think I would give, or I would say, is, be okay with messing up. As long as you're going to go back and understand why you messed up, understand where you messed up, because then you can create a stronger habit, because then you start eliminating those things that are going to trip you up. You can start eliminating those things that are, stopping you. And you can see those a little more clearly, right? When you notice, and when you intentionally look for, okay, where am I messing up and what's impacting that? Oh, it's this, 10 minutes a day where I decide to just lay there and do nothing. And, or that maybe it's that certain moment, like, I think I've hit on when I come home and I sit down right away. I get stuck there sometimes. And so it's better for me to come home, do the dishes, sweep the floor, run around with the kids real quick, something to prevent me from sitting down, because then I'm up for the rest of the night. Where sometimes when I go and sit down, I'm like, I'm comfortable. I'm going to turn on one episode, then another episode, and then another episode, or I'm just going to chill and not do, not be very productive. So I think when we can do that stuff, we can add a lot of positivity to our life, and really get past some of those bad habits. And again, whenever you're working on yourself, whenever you're creating growth, whether it's habits or anything else, your mental health is going to be growing. You're going to be feeling better. You're going to bring that happiness into your life. And that's just what what we're always trying to encourage here, is like, life isn't perfect. It's not always going to be great. Even when you get to a point of greatness, there's something more there, or you feel like you're at that point of greatness or that huge point of success. There's something more there. So, that's what we want to do, right? We want to encourage that growth and encourage that constant ability to change, adapt to your situations, and always look to be better the next day.
Yeah. Wow. That's a great way you put it. We all want to just try to be a little bit better each day that we can. And I think that this actually directly ties into a couple other topics that we had, and this is why I like how it's structured. This is really a journey. So anybody who's tuning in, and maybe this is the first one you've seen, the one I recommend going checking back that really ties into this one would be resilience, because when it comes to that bad thing that happens where you feel like everything's going good because you built a good habit and you've been doing good for those 2 to 3 months now, that 90-day period where you feel like, okay, I've built a solid, strong foundation of good habits. As long as everything goes right, I'll be good. But that's when, if something goes wrong, you can't let it drop you back into the scene like it was never there, like you never had good habits. I think that's where having that type of resilience can kick in and say, you know what? Yeah, this was not the plan, but I am in a state of happiness where I'm healthy, my mental is good, and I am going to respond to this in a good way where, like you said, I didn't make my bed maybe first thing in the morning, but as soon as I got home, I knocked it out. And I think I can really relate and resonate with you specifically when it comes to if I come home and sit down right away. I think I'm the same way. Little one, hey, can we go run around? Look, tomorrow, I'm tired, had a long day at work. And now we start making those same excuses, creating the habits again when it was just my 8.5 hour day was no different than yesterday's 8.5 hour day where I felt great after it. I just decided in that moment to say, you know what? I'm tired. Let me be. We'll play tomorrow. And that's, I think, the one thing, if you do have kids or, little ones in your life, that's the thing that I would say you will find most saddening if you decide to keep saying that. And then as they grow older, they don't want to hang out. They don't want to do anything. That's the thing I love the most about having kids, especially a younger one. Can we go play soccer? A split second, I was tired. My day didn't go well at work. I was just like, and then I thought back to my childhood. Not a single time can I remember that my mom or dad did not say yes. It's like, hey, can I go out and practice? Yes, let's go. We can go whenever you're ready. And I think that type of growth from my parents and just that support helped me develop into the person I am today. And so for me, I refuse to let a bad habit or a negative thought prevent my kids from getting the same opportunity that I got. And I think that's a powerful way to relieve it from yourself and trying to focus on, okay, how do I be better? Do it for the kids, do it for your loved ones, your family, your friends. Focus on how it's going to benefit them, because what you're going to find is you're going to be a lot happier, like I was tonight when I said, okay, give me 15 minutes, let me change out of my work clothes, and then let's go. And we were out there for 2 hours, we played soccer, went to the park. Next thing you know, it was a great night, memories that we'll always have with us. And that's the part of the thing that you can't you can't really, I guess you can't really predict how it's going to go. But if you just sit on the couch like me and you have done in the past, we definitely know what's going to happen. Kids are just going to do what they're doing. We're just chilling at home. 5 episodes later, we go to sleep, have a drink, whatever the case is, eat some food, and then we just repeat. And I think that type of routine ends up getting you in a situation where you're not happy. And then if that continues that cycle, you almost get to a point where you don't really know where you're going, and there's maybe not as much excitement in your life. So I challenge you to take those moments. If it's your kids, if it's your parents, if it's your family, your friends, hey, we're going out. You haven't been out in a couple weeks. Come out. That first urge, I'm good. Throw that out. You know what? What time? Just go. You'll be so much happier that you're doing something. And in that type of environment usually breeds a positive environment for yourself. And you can find that happiness when it comes to something that might not be so positive. And that's, I think, where it all ties together when it comes to our ability to grow mentally. We finally can say, you know what? Life is going to give me ups and downs. I'm not going to have the perfect life. If there was no bad, we wouldn't know good. If there was no good, we wouldn't know bad. Everybody would just be down the middle. Life would be boring. There's no excitement there. So take some of that excitement, kind of grab the bull by the horns, as that saying goes, and go for it. Have some fun, but also remember that things are going to happen to you that are not intended. They're not favorable. That's not how you want to go. How we respond and the habits we've built to continue to go in the positive direction, I think, is very important. And just take that first step. I know a lot of times it comes to just find that first person you can talk to, or that first realization, like, I don't want this anymore. I want to do more. I don't want to get so bummed out about life whenever I hear something negative. In fact, I want to get happy about life even if I hear something negative. And that's where, for me, it's tough. I know my fiance, something, she's had some stuff going on, maybe medically, that isn't as favorable, and I'm trying to help her with her approach, because a lot of times it's this. So then she lists all the symptoms and this how it's related, and then starts to kind of diagnose herself. And I'm like, look, if we can't control it right now, all we can do is drink more water, take our vitamins, try to do the things that we know we're supposed to do. The worrying, the stress, the self-diagnosing is what's going to manifest more negative energy, and in turn probably create whatever illness we're talking about to become to life. And that's a specific example of how your actual health can be affected. But I think as a universal process in life, you just really have to remember that if you think negative, you will find negative. If you think positive, you will find positive. And if you can find positive in the form of how you react to things, how you choose to act when it comes to things in life, the habits that you build, you will find that life can be very enjoyable, and you can really have a great experience and have a positive outlook, even if you might have the most negative things happen to you. And that's where I've learned how to get a little bit better at dealing with negatives with a positive. And to be honest, I could have lost 4 family members, and unless you're in my close inner circle, you'd never know, because I'm able to approach it in a way that allows me to still live a positive life. Grieving, mourning, of course, that, like, all that is tough, but it's not going to be something that affects my life. And that's definitely, I think, something that we want everybody to try to work towards as they're on their journey of, growing, because it's not easy to do.
Yeah, and a lot of what you said is in relation to developing those small habits, and they become something bigger. Whether it's how we deal with something like grief or loss, or I've definitely seen a lot of the self diagnosis, and there's one problem and it builds and builds and builds, because you can just Google it right away and then 50 things pop up, but the worst thing pops up first, so then we start going down that rabbit hole. And those small habits that we can let negativity into our lives, and give us that negative perspective. Whereas when we can change those, it starts to, like exactly what you were just saying, it starts to make that big change to where if something negative is happening, you can still view life in a positive way. You can still be happy in those moments. You can still, find the light in those moments, and keep yourself growing and moving forward. And then I like that you tied in the resilience one, because I think that's what habits give us. Habits can give us resilience, because then when things go wrong, when we get knocked down, we have the habit of getting right back up. If something doesn't go our way, we have the habit of adapting and making it go our way. Or if something, just beats us over the head, we have the ability to adapt and protect ourselves in that moment, take a few punches, and then go with what we need to go with. And so I think, when we develop habits, we build resilience, and we're able to grow, and we're able to find those positives in life, and we're able to give those people around us a lot more. And one more thing I want to hit on before we wrap up is, I think a lot of what we have talked about, and a lot of the different topics, a lot of the times they go back into connection. Whether we're talking about connecting with our spouse, or we're talking about connecting with our kids or our parents or whatever, like that's a huge part about mental health and staying happy is connecting, and when we can surround ourselves with habits that connect us to other people, we're going to be happy. We're going to have bad days, but overall, we're going to be happy, because we're constantly going to be connected to those who love us and those that we love. And that's, a huge part of life, and growing and being happy with where we're at and what we're doing. So yeah, this has been, another one, and another great topic discussion, another great look into habits. And so, like Michael said earlier, just challenging you to take those small steps to, try to create some small changes, because those big changes come right with that. Those big changes come right with the little step you took a year ago. That's where you're at now. That change came from that little step. And so if you think about it that way, instead of like, oh, I'm going to be better tomorrow if I create this small habit today. That's going to hurt you. But if you realize that the small habits you started a year ago are going to put you in some great places now, that's how we do it. So again, Michael, thanks for joining us. We'll see you again on Friday for, diving into our next navigating substance use, which is marijuana. And I think that's going to be a fun one to talk about just because that's kind of how we initially bonded and really built our relationship off of at the time. So, and again, go back, check out the journey segment from Monday. It was a really good one with Josh and talking about growing up and getting into the street life, ending up in prison. And then, now he's a motivational speaker. So, there's a lot of good things that we can do in life when we connect, when we relate. And we hope to give you that all here. So join us, keep joining us. And again, it's been Illuminate, Navigate, Radiate. Have a great rest of your day.